after the last couple of election cycles, like I just don't. I have I developed a reputation for being a kind of political songwriter. I still am in a lot of ways, but I don't really have. I'm not interested in saying the same thing for the 40th time right now, And so you kind of have to find other ways to scratch that itch in the writing process. But I feel guilty for not continually hammering at it. So that's one of those.
Yeah, I used to be so. If there was a protest happening, I'd be like, sign me up, and I would run to it. And now, a couple of years ago, I joined Twitter for 1 weekend. I was a Twitterer, and it was just to find out where these protests were happening downtown, block by block, so I could just be like, oh, just let me, And I realized that's a certain privilege I have to stay away from the protests, but that shit's exhausting.
Yeah. It is. And I've gone through cycles of being completely burnt out and exhausted, and you have to allow yourself time to recharge. I've an example of something where I was able to speak to someone else about this, for their own safety, but I don't take care of myself in the same way. Is the Pharmacist drummer Chris Wilson is an incredibly, he's a punk guy as well, and he's incredibly frugal. And there were times when I would see him just really sort of not taking care of himself on tour, not in a overloading with vices way, but in a real ascetic way, like the punk asceticism, And I would tell him, we need you here,
especially a drummer. There's a certain athleticism.
Well, or even just in the world, we like you and we need you here, and it's okay to get a hotel room every now and then if you need a full night's sleep, or
you guys still stay on people's floors 200 nights a year? Till more recently than you'd think. Yeah. Oh man, all Priceline changed. That's if I have a brand loyalty for anything, I never Star Trek, but fucking William Shatner is my man now. And it's really weird because we walk into hotels with our sleeping bags. It went from being on tour and getting a $70 room at Super 8 felt like some crazy indulgence to squeeze 5 people in a $70 room, to being oh, we could get a $40 room at this 4-star hotel, and then we walk in with our sleeping bags and everyone looks at us ooh. But that takes a whole different stamina.
Yeah, but the point is that you do have to allow yourself to recharge.
Yeah, right, because you can't okay. Let's say you drive 6 hours, then it's an incredible expending of energy to sing and dance, whatever that is you do. And then to go to some guy's house and answer his questions and have him play you your own old records and be like, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I don't do that anymore.
Right, that's what I'm saying, good move. Wow, keeping it real. So back to keeping it real. So you're the narrator in all those songs. Ted Leo singing it.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been the case, and I think it's a problem because I have been the narrator in almost everything that I've ever written, but I don't always want to be, even if it's something that I wrote as the narrator. Sometimes it's getting something out and then you moved on from that. And it's not a great feeling to have every word that you've uttered in a song sometimes be interpreted by people in your life at different levels of closeness, personally. But that's also the danger of being the first person narrator.
Yeah, sure. So that's interesting. You're talking about, right, the new songs you played. You're like, well, I gotta write some songs in my safety zone of notes. And I was really shocked because I know that like a question that's always on my mind is all the new songs, like our new record started after we threw away 38 songs that we decided were those songs worth keeping. That's the pile that built up of like, okay, these are the good ones. Then when we threw those 38 away, then we were like, now we can start. And so I'm always wondering, is it harder or easier? But I feel like the one thing I know that makes it easier is I write songs in my vocal range now.
Right.
What are you doing?
Well,
why are you making it hard on yourself? This is an intervention like you had to give to Chris.
Yeah, I was being facetious. I'm just not warmed up enough at this hour of the day, honestly, to make that work. But I can make it work. But.
Well, how about the safety zone of your narrator? I'm going to ask you this.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a legitimate question, and there are a few songs in this newer batch that are in a lower register that I almost never sing in, and it's kind of fun. It's fun, like, to listen back to while I'm mixing and stuff and be like, oh wow.
Have you done that?
It's actually very different.
I find when I like sing the lower register songs live, just because there's like less push necessary for my breath, I feel like the physical act of like projecting is just less. Have you had that? Like, is that a thing? Like, do you feel like there's less energy being put into it?
You have to sing it with less energy because you can't force a low note the way you can force a high note. It'll go sharp or flat or something, or it'll sound weird. Like, you kind of have to.
But does that feel like putting less? Going back to the Catholic guilt, does that feel like putting less?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? My whole thing was driven by the physical presentation of it to a point at which, during the touring on Brutalist Bricks, like, I was destroying our songs. I realize in retrospect, like, I was hammering them and my band so hard. Destroying the songs meaning the way they were performed live. Yeah. We're just getting more and more physical. Because I was insane, and I was really being like driven by this I don't know, like this need to like just hammer every point into the ground, whether anybody wanted to hear it that way. But that's the sort of thrill, right, that people are coming to see. Like, there's no. Remember, like when bands felt dangerous, like Bauhaus or something. You're like, oh, are they gonna kick me? Yeah. Like, there's this thrill of like, oh my God, they're playing so hard, they're gonna like, what? Run off the rails? I don't know, but like. No, I do remember that, and I'm not rid of that desire. I grew up in the hardcore scene, and that's not out of me, but I also do, like, I write songs that can be kind of nice if they're not shouted, if they're actually sung, Yeah. And I, like, honestly. Well, no, I was just gonna say that, like, there's I think I'm starting to feel that, like, it's okay to have a couple of different streams going, and all under the banner of Ted Leo? No, not necessarily. Like different things. And the truth of the matter is too that I hate to keep harping on this, but like, I am getting older, and more than any other part of my body, my voice cannot take that anymore. Like, I played a show yesterday, and I'm froggy today. That's where it's at with me right now, and I have to take care of that, and I want to take care of it. And so when you said, like, okay, I was a madman pushing the band and the songs as I was at that point, so you must have different perspective on it now to see yourself as a madman. Because you're not like, I was doing the right thing. Right. So I'm wondering,
Because there's like that way, right, where you put the band in the middle of your life, and you have like a family, friends, financial obligations, everything. You're like, no, the band is here. I'll deal with you when the band has a minute. But then at some point there's that shift, and your life becomes your life, and then you fit the band in. So I'm wondering how that process is going for you. Do you think of it in that way?
Well, yeah, it has been that. It's definitely. I think that with my domestic life, it has been the case that it's for a number of years it was convenient for everybody involved that we're sort of doing our separate things and trying to integrate a little bit more into understanding what it's like to have a domestic life. It's something that I'm definitely still working on.
Yeah, that's the punk damage, man. It's like, yeah. I was like I meet these people 15 years younger than me or so, and they have these like expectations of themselves in adulthood that I'm like, wow, I was just like, I missed that whole thing. I was just in a band or something.
Yeah, when I think, at the time it didn't seem crazy, but when I think about the age that I was at while I was like still doing this or that, I'm not upset that I'm actually like pretty happy with the life that I've led.
I was just gonna shift gears after this to say like, man, you and I both had like amazing lives, so let's not say
not at all. But it is interesting to look back and say like, oh, when I was 12. I thought me at 38 would be this or that.
Yeah.
And now I look back to what I was doing when I was 38, and it's not what I thought when I was 12.
This is so funny because I just said this. This came up at the last podcast about how I had a realization at 38 that I was living my dream life as a 13-year-old. My 13-year-old self's dream life of myself as a 38-year-old had come true. And I'd only woken up at 38 to be like, this dream sucks. I gotta do what the 38-year-old me wants to do. So what was the difference for you?
The actual literal difference in what I thought when I was 12?
Yeah, well, how did you imagine?
I think that when I was younger, I didn't have a real strong vision of myself as a musician. I just kind of started doing it and then just kept doing it, and as unromantic as that sounds,
no, I get it.
It was just, I think it was just like an organic process of like discovery and
sure, and
this is what I love doing.
Community and all, like
yeah. Right. I think that when I was younger, I probably saw myself, like as like a cool professor, more hair than I have, like lecturing about something and then having a real throwdown with a student.
Yeah, actually, this moment is really good because as a child I always wanted to be a public intellectual, and this sort of satisfies that. Very low standards that punk rock taught me. Okay, so